Hey there, all you creepers and reapers. Welcome to another episode of the Femme Fatalities. I'm your co-hostess, Anna, and I'm here with...
Hey, Grief Lanes and Fright Lanes, it's Margaret, and oh my gosh, Anna, I don't think we can say it. Can we say it?
I'll say it. We're talking about the new Beetlejuice today.
Just don't say it
So,
3 times.
no. Get your cowgirl or cowboy boots on. Make sure you grab a saddle so you can hop on a sandworm and take a ride through the afterlife with us. Now,
Yes.
before we get into it, there are a couple triggers. Obviously, death, spirits, hauntings, spousal death. There's a couple of bloody scenes, but they're cute. I thought they were cute. I mean, they are bloody, though.
Mm-hmm.
Narcissistic personalities and manipulation in relationships, codependency. What else?
I think you've covered it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. So, this movie I thought was very fun. I enjoyed it, having seen the original a bajillion times. I loved that it was a totally different plot, different storyline. I enjoyed how they kind of got rid of Lydia's father's character, and I was shocked to learn that Lydia's bio mother was alive.
Yes, me too. I did not think she was alive at all.
No, and especially in the original, when she bonds so strongly with Barbara Maitland, I was like, oh, and we even talked about how it was like potential like parent loss, and then the fact that Barbara had miscarried and how they're connecting and kind of filling those voids. So, but we don't know if her bio mom was just inactive in her life or whatever the situation may have been there. I love the fact that she's like a ghost hunter, spiritual medium. That's the perfect job for her.
Mm-hmm.
And I really enjoy how Delia deals with her grief. Now, if you've seen this movie, I wouldn't recommend maybe behaving exactly like Delia, but art therapy is great, and Delia channels her grief into her work and her life experience into her work, and that can be a very powerful and healing thing to do.
Yes, I'm with you. I love Delia's grief journey. I love how she normalizes and validates how grief is different for everyone and how we see her like singing and then doing her art and making videos. How often, I was like, yeah, with social media and the internet, how often are people taking their grief? They're making memorial videos, they're doing these different things to commemorate, to remember the person. And like Anna said, like how art can be so cathartic and helpful in our grief. So I just love that Delia was like, yeah, I'm grieving and we're all grieving. And she's like moaning, like, and if you listen to Anna and I, we talk a lot about how Western society tries to mute grief and doesn't allow grief. In our program, we learned there are countries where it is normal to loudly wail, to cry, to have these all physical, emotional displays of grief. And here in the United States, sadly, it's like, I'm grieving. And there's not and if somebody is loudly crying and wailing, it's like, what's wrong with them? So I loved that. She's like, no, I'm grieving. And this is how I'm grieving. And I'm doing it loudly. So
Yeah.
I thoroughly enjoyed her journey. Plus, I love the actress. So
Yeah, same here. She's great. And it's almost like she's taking a stand against normal society and its viewpoint. And that's what's so great too. And a lot of artists do that in their own way and a lot of like a variety of situations. So it's just very enjoyable in many ways. Now, another character that presents themselves, Dolores. She's just something else. I think she's the cat's meow. I really I like her. I like who she ends up with at the end. I think they're a great pair. They can feed off of each other, her maybe more so off of him, literally. But yeah, I just thought she was a lot of fun. I think that it was a great addition. was really worried that they were going to stick with the same storyline, and really at some point something new has to happen, and there were a lot of new things, which was really, really a great experience for the viewer.
Yes. And again, they kept with this grief theme, and even with Rory, right? His dislikable character. And if we look at grief, there are these people that do try to capitalize off of
Mhm.
grief, whether it is in the paranormal world, which we see a lot again in current society, where people are so eager or they need that closure. Some
Mhm.
people even desperate to connect. So that's where Lydia's character comes in. Let me help give you this closure, this, let me be a psychic, and his predatory nature about that with Lydia and the audience, and how there are
Mhm.
those people that, oh, you need closure with your loved one. Well, I'll prey on this and I'll take advantage of you in
Yeah.
your grief state.
Yeah, and it kind of made me think of the movie Ghost, with Whoopi Goldberg's character and her sisters, and how initially, it's kind of this pretend setup at the psychic studio, and then
Mhm.
oh crap, she actually can see and connect with the dead. Um, and just what you mentioned about so many people taking advantage, and those sorts of scenarios. Um, Rory, ugh, gross. I,
Yeah.
I, as empathetic person, quote unquote, I thought he was kind of gross and gave me like some cringy feelings. And then when you find out what a manipulative jerk he is beyond that, it's even worse. And it does kind of identify with a lot of those personality types. We hear a lot of buzzwords right now, like you hear narcissistic personality, that's everywhere
Mhm.
right now. And I think that manipulative persons, without using a terminology identifier beyond that, they do tend to set their sights on someone that they view as weak or easy to kind of convince of certain things. And oftentimes that person may be someone who's gone through a traumatic experience, someone who is accustomed to being around manipulative characters, or someone who's extremely caring, and tries to see the good in others, or a combination of all of those things. And the way that the film addresses a situation of that nature is great. Um, Lydia ridding herself of him is very empowering, and I really hope that at least one person watching the movie who found themselves in a similar relationship maybe realize that, hey, Lydia can do it, I can do it too, um, and that it helped them.
Oh yeah, I appreciate how you touch on their relationship, and as you're like elaborating on this, how the Rorys of the world, he is relatable, because I think a lot of us can relate to Lydia, and then a lot of us can think of Rorys who either have preyed on us or have preyed on people we know. I think oftentimes we're like, oh
Mm-hmm.
my gosh, my friend met this guy at this yoga retreat and he's really slimy, and she doesn't see it because she went to this, or what she would, like Lydia went to that retreat and he was there,
Yeah.
and that's how they met. And being like, oh, like this person was using this retreat to meet people, not to actually better themselves. And the Rorys of the
Mm-hmm.
world also do things like he did. Here is the memorial service. Oh, I'm going to propose to you and I'm going to make this
Ugh.
about me. Those people that are just
Mm-hmm.
swarmy and whatever chance they get. I think of like Reddit. I don't know if you ever get on the subreddit, Am I the Asshole? And there'll be people on there that'll be like, Am I the asshole for announcing my pregnancy at my sister's wedding? Am I the asshole for it? And it's like, these people that just don't know how to read the
Mm-hmm.
room and know when
Yeah,
is it appropriate to do certain things.
absolutely. And I came across a quote recently that um, bears repeating. It kind of is, if you often wonder if you're a bad person, chances are you aren't one. But I don't know if the application of if you wonder if you're an asshole, you're not one, because sometimes when we make a move and then we're like, oh, that was kind of a jerk move, like we're well aware of what we're doing or what we've done, but we've all been there. I think that that's the tricky part too, is there are non-manipulative personality types that maybe don't make the best decisions and proceed with actions that may not be considerate of others. And it's not often, but when it happens, it definitely sticks out. And then you have more manipulative personality types that's just their lifestyle.
Yes. I really appreciate it. Again, I just appreciate everything about you. How you bring up for people, right? On that subreddit, am I the asshole? Those are the people that are learning, they're growing. Somebody was like, hey, announcing your pregnancy at your sister's wedding was not cool. And then they're like, let me get more information. Let me understand how that was asshole behavior. It feels like the Rorys of the world, they're assholes. And they're not going to be like, am I the asshole? Is I out of line? More like, no, I'm just doing this. As Anna was talking, like narcissistic personality disorder. People that have that are not reflecting. They're not saying, am I the asshole? They're like, no, like it was a wedding. Everybody was there. So of course I did this. And I could see where that was inappropriate of me.
Yeah, like the sense of logic is slightly altered.
Yes.
Compared to other persons.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And talking about the personalities, I feel like Dolores, she was just like more of a I gotta do what I gotta do to survive the Crusades type. Definitely not likening her to Joan of Arc by any means, but it was more of a case of, okay, I'm a woman. This is like, many centuries ago. How am I going to survive? Okay, well, if I do this, that could work. And I'm part of this group and I need to sustain my subgroup and society. And how am I going to do this? Who am I going to pick? And those sorts of things. She turns into a soul sucker in the afterlife, but we don't really know if she had any other victims before old Beatty. So I don't know that there's necessarily a precursor to say she's evil. I would say she's just more pissed off than anything. I did enjoy the Danny DeVito thing though. And the funny thing is, in the first movie, you find out that if you commit suicide in the living world, you work as a civil servant in the afterlife, like indefinitely. And we knew how he did it because he's drinking drain cleaner. And I was like, well, that, okay, we know what happened with him. And a lot of the time, what happened to the civil workers. Like, you had a lot of people that would walk out into traffic and they're flat and they go through the file rooms. Miss Argentina in the first one, of course, had slit her wrist. I don't know what the girl that worked at, I guess, the Dairy Queen or similar place like that had done. I still cannot figure that out because she, I assume, is one of Miss Argentina's colleagues, and she's the one that greets people. So
I don't know.
would be
That's
interesting to find out.
Great question on how does she get there? And again, like wonderful bringing up Dolores and how she is the product of her times. These are the Crusades. Women historically were not thought well of. They really did not have a purpose except to fit society's rules of them. And we haven't discussed this a lot, and I know we'll get there because we're still a baby cast and we've got so much to talk about, and we have referenced women and witchcraft. And so oftentimes if a woman had power, if she was beautiful, strong, whatever it was that society didn't want her to be, she was a witch. So of course Dolores is going to lean into that because society has already said, well, you got to be a witch because of XYZ. You want to be single, so I guess you have to be a witch.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Oh no, are you still with me,
I'm
Margaret?
still here. I can hear
Okay.
you and see you.
Oh, okay. We're talking about all this witchy stuff, and then our screens freeze. Um, dun dun dun. Our spellbinding power. And I forget the name of the character, but Astrid's friend that she makes. Um,
Yes. I'm checking my notes to see if I put his name in. Jeremy? That does not feel right. So I think my phone might have auto corrected. Continue.
he's quite a character, and I love that Astrid then eventually realizes that she's able to see the dead like her mother.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's funny because when Lydia's like, "Oh, I want to go in and meet the parents," had she done that, the entire kind of situation of Astrid having to go to the afterlife and the boy wanting to have her sign this contract so his soul would be free and she would be there forever wouldn't have even happened. But I thought it was incredibly clever, very well done. What a great lead in if they ever make a third movie, because there would be all sorts of adventures she could be having as well.
Yes. Yeah, that was yeah, that I'm with you. And then they wouldn't have been able to reconcile with her dad as we look at
Mm-hmm.
again, Beetlejuice's is all about grief. We have Lydia's and Astrid's unresolved grief about dad, and even Lydia, still her anger, that abandonment, and that she's just, that's what people do in grief. I don't want to talk about that person. We're just going to act like it didn't happen. And Astrid's desire, her need. And so when you are grieving, it can be so cathartic, so healing to talk about the deceased. Pull out those photo albums. If you're not in a place to do that, get other supports and help your loved ones have other supports. I'm not in a place to talk about your dad right now. Why don't you call grandma? Why don't you go talk to Delia's all about grief. I mean, she is very self absorbed.
Yes.
You might, though, she's gonna come, or like she'll help you in her way, and so that you can still honor this. Again, we go to like the digital age, so many
Mm-hmm.
people, I'm really missing this person, and they share a picture or a
Yeah.
story so that you can honor your grief, even if the people in your life are in a place where they're like, I don't want to talk about
Yeah.
that person.
Absolutely. And the counter side to the digital age, so I have not been on one particular social media platform for over 5 years. And the reason is, how some platforms have programs where they're like, oh, in this day in 2019, this was your picture.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so when my grandmother was alive, I was consistently taking pictures of her and her activities and her adventures and her and me. So every time that I would click on the app or log in, right after she had passed away, it was like a picture of her, a picture with me and her. And sometimes too, when your grief is really fresh, it's just too painful. Um,
Mm-hmm.
now I am not on a lot of social media. I don't really miss it that much. So I'm just like, maybe I'll go back one day. But that's absolutely kind of normal as well. And at some point, you do want to be like, oh, I miss this person, or this was a great time. This was a great memory. Caution needs to be kind of considered too, because if you do post a picture, a family member or a friend might say, why would you post that? They're gone, or whatever their trauma or grief response is. It has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with them. And I think that is one of the most difficult things to learn, is oftentimes when we're grieving or we're going through change or loss or any sort of experience that alters us, whether it is a positive experience or a negative experience or something that's kind of neutral, um, other people's reaction to what we're going through may not always be favorable, but it's more about their internal dialogue than anything that's going on with you.
Yes. And thank you so much for reminding our viewers and listeners of that. And you get to use your discretion on what you share. You can turn your comments off. A lot of social media platforms now have it to where you can just share with friends so that you're not getting acquaintances or somebody whose grief is unresolved. A lot of people now will even put trigger warning, grief post, trigger warning, saying, don't read this, like if this isn't okay. And social media, like life, it can be a wonderful place for us to process our grief, and it can also be a really hard place. Like those of you that have listened to me and Anna have heard us talk about, people don't deal well with grief, and also they don't know how. And as the bereaved, how do you advocate for yourself? If I'm sharing with Anna my mom's cancer story, and Anna might be like, oh my gosh, yes, I want to share mine, Anna and I both know. Anna would be like, can I share my cancer story? And then I can be like,
Mhm.
I'm not in a place to hear that. Or I might actually be in that place where I'm like, yes, please share. And we hope that we model this for people. How do you support the bereaved? How do you ask, can I share? And if I'm like, no, then Anna knows that's not personal. And then she might go and say, oh, I was talking to Margaret and her grief story brought up my grief story. And then she has her supports to support her. That's so often we get so offended.
Mhm.
Margaret didn't want to hear my grief story. It's not that I didn't want to hear it, it's that I did not have the capacity to hear
Mhm.
or honor her grief story.
Absolutely. And, an ounce of consideration is worth way more than a pound of regret. So, Margaret, you put it so wonderfully, just to kind of consider the other person and to realize that even though we narrate our own lives, right, it's not always about us as the individual. We have to remember that everyone else is going through their own experience, and somebody might be having a bad day or a hard time or a great day, and the way they react to us is based on that.
Yes. So, listeners, viewers, if you can be of support, how can I support you? Like Anna and I do that in our friendship. We're texting throughout the week, and often one of us is saying, how can I support you? And the other one saying, you already are oftentimes, or, I just wanted to share.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can say, I don't know how to support you. I can't support you right now. I'm going through my own shit right now. Again, like when I work with people, I say, if I ask Anna for a cup of sugar and she doesn't have it, she's not
Mm-hmm.
rejecting me. She's not saying she doesn't love me. She's saying, I love you and I don't have sugar. She might come back and be like, I've got honey, I've got agave. Do either one of these work for you? And I might say yes, or I might say no. So often, especially when we're raw, we're like, oh, you don't have what I need. It's me and not that. Okay, you don't have sugar, you don't have sugar. Who has
Mm-hmm.
sugar?
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's okay to be fresh out of ingredients sometimes, and other times you will have a full pantry. It just depends where life is headed, and those things are okay too. And the important thing is to remember not to beat yourself up if you're not in a position to provide the support someone's asking for. Just be honest and tell them. And um, sometimes too, if you are someone whose pantry is always full and abundant when others need the ingredients, but then you find that there's a consistency to everyone requesting more and more fill-ups to their ingredients, but never offering to restore the supplies that you've given. You can vocalize that and say, hey, I really need a cup of sugar now, or I need a quarter cup of flour, or whatever it is. And hopefully there's some reciprocation. If not, you will find other sources to help you, keep your pantry stock up.
Yes. Ooh, thank you. Thank you for also addressing that for our viewers and listeners. And for those of you, I think, that are probably like me and Anna, and you want to be able to support, you've got the sugar, and maybe the person doesn't need the sugar or they don't know what they
Mm-hmm.
need. We can say, hey, can I give you a hug? Hey, do you
Mm-hmm.
want to go on a walk with me? Hey, I made you this casserole. When people are grieving, they often aren't sleeping well, they aren't eating well. So we can just, hey, can I come
Mm-hmm.
by and like clean your kitchen for you? Can I So if they're like, how can I support you? I don't know. Sometimes we say, you know what?
Yeah.
I'm going to bake you something. I'm going to do an act of service for you. And
Mm-hmm.
that, even if they can't thank you, that is still like very like helpful. When we're grieving, we can't always say thank you. And then later on, we're like, oh, Anna brought me that casserole. She came and
Mm-hmm.
cleaned my house, because we don't even know that. I don't know that I need to eat. I don't know that my house is a mess. I'm grieving.
Yeah, exactly. And even, you know, to say like, oh, hey, I made some bread. I'm going to drop it off. And then when you drop it off, be like, hey, while I'm already here, is there anything I can do that would be helpful? So if it's hard for you to break the ice, but you want to provide support, that's a really great lead in as
Yeah.
well.
And so, yeah, offering, like Anna said, or even sometimes doing, because some of us have those friends that were like, hey, can I do this? And they don't want to feel like they're imposing. So they'll say no. And then, right, the
Yeah.
person like, hey, I got nothing doing Saturday. I'm cleaning your house. You better let me in, or we're going to have a problem. I think we all have those friends that they're like, I know you're going to say no to me caring
Mm-hmm.
for you. So I'm going to care for you.
Absolutely. And don't forget your friends that are always there for everyone else and nothing seems to phase them. Guaranteed at times things do phase them. So it's just as important to check on you know, the friends that are the rocks because they need a little support every now and then too.
Check on your friends, and
Mhm.
you never know when, yeah, you never know what friend might show up. I know I've had incidences where I've just had a really bad day, and I know certain friends aren't available, and then I just end up reaching out to a friend because their name pops in
Mhm.
my head, and they have been more than helpful because they were available for me.
Yeah,
So if I knew Anna and other friends weren't available, and I'm like, oh, text this person, they're like, yeah, I got you. And then, so just be open
absolutely.
and curious in
Mhm.
your journey, I think is what we're trying to say.
Definitely. Oh, and for our movie, poor old Beetlejuice, he's single again. And I think like I don't want to say the love story because it is kind of twisted and weird, but the fact that like he cannot find the kind of love he needs, that speaks a lot to the human spirit.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Or that he's fixated and obsessed
Yes.
on Lydia and hasn't allowed himself to, like, whoa,
Mhm.
I think I might need to talk to somebody, or let's go. Maybe I need to read a
Mhm.
self-help book or listen to a podcast. I have obsessed over this person who has aged now, and I'm still obsessed. What
Mhm.
is it about her that I want? I
Yeah.
need, and who is out there that has that and wants to share that with me? So often we're like, this person, and we don't go,
Mhm.
okay, what does this person have that other people have that will actually want to share it with me?
Yeah, it's the unrequited love and the idea that it's lasted so long. You can't help but feel a little bit bad for him. And when Lydia needs him, he's right there.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel almost as though in the sequel, he's the hero in a sense because he does help more than cause mischief. Whereas in the original, he's definitely the antagonist.
Mm-hmm. Well, he enjoys causing
Mm-hmm.
mischief.
But now that he's stuck in the afterlife corporate cyclone, he's just
Mm-hmm.
happy to get out of there for a minute. He's like, oh, I get to leave the office. No. But
Yeah.
it's fun and they really developed the characters nicely and I'm very impressed with the movie. In some senses I like the new one better than the original, but then in other senses, like, you know, the original can't be beat.
I think I'm with the original. I liked this one.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoyed it. Yeah, I don't, yeah.
Yeah. It's very rare to leave the movie theater and be like, wow, I really got my money's worth, no complaints. And I feel like with this movie, that definitely was achieved.
Ooh, nice. Yay. I think I was like, yeah, good movie.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, well, I've got to ask, who do you most relate to in this film?
That is a great question. Who do I most relate to? I don't like everybody has like little bits and parts that I'm like,
Mhm.
oh yeah, I relate to that. Maybe Astrid's dad, who's just like, oh my gosh, here's my loved one coming into the afterlife. Like, how do
Yeah.
I help them and support them and get them back into the living world? How about
Mhm.
you?
I have to say probably like the tellers at the like before we get to the Soul Train, because I feel
Hmm.
like no matter how perky and energetic and excited you try to be every day, every now and then it's just like, ugh. I feel like that is the persona of the tellers. Like, you know, you get some that are super duper jazzed and excited to be there, and others that are just like, this sucks. But I do wonder about Astrid's dad because he works there. So he's a civil servant, but he was eaten by piranhas. That was not
Hmm.
self induced.
Yeah, I don't. That's a good question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't catch that.
That's a maybe a very broad idea, like the fact that he chose to go to the infested waters or something. I don't know.
I,
Or maybe it
I
was
don't
part of a
know. That is.
protest and he jumped in, like to prove a point. I don't know.
Ooh.
Ugh.
I don't know. If he jumped in to prove a point, then I'm just going to be an audience member in one of Lydia's shows.
Yeah,
Yeah.
could be. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. But it was great. I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. If you're listening, highly recommend it. It is super fun, super nostalgic. If you grew up watching it, try and go see it or have, you know, company over to watch it with you that you watched the original with. It's a blast. Lots of great ideas on Pinterest and other websites for Beetlejuice themed parties. I cannot say enough. Like, it's perfect theme, especially if you have like pre-adolescent kids, or you know, if you let your younger kids watch it, to watch both movies together and just have a whole like party and themed stuff. And yeah, I like that kind of stuff too. um you probably can tell, but yeah, I think it's definitely good. I'd watch it again. What about you, Margaret?
I liked it. I'd watch it again. I don't think I'm as enthusiastic as you. I was like, yeah, I like it. Like a good 3 out of 5 stars. It was good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like we each get to have movies that we love. If you guys listen, you know that there are definitely movies that Anna and I feel differently about. And
Yeah.
this is one of those, not one of those main ones, but this is one
Mhm.
Anna loves and I like it.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
cool. Like, you know, and that's what's so great about movies too is you know, and especially like having friends that enjoy the same type of movie, you can share thoughts and ideas and suggestions. And I always say this is a great example of how to communicate in a positive way. Like if I really love something and Margaret, you know, doesn't love it quite as much, she's going to express that, but she's not going to express it in a way that is negative or hurtful. She's gonna be like, oh well, you know, that was cool too, or whatever, and vice versa. And it's really great to have friendships where you can communicate openly and honestly and effectively. And if anything, I really hope if you're listening and you've heard some of our conversations, especially about the deeper hitting films that we've had different points of view on, or we've had similar views on because of our life experiences, whatever the situation is, I really hope that you're able to learn and grow through your communication as well. And maybe we're offering something to you that is helpful.
Yes, yes, yes. And even to piggyback that, so often, like Anna and I talk about what movies we're going to watch. And I know for me, if she's watched it before me and she sends me that text, I might actually go in with a different lens. I might
Mhm.
actually go in being like, oh, okay, like Anna has pointed this out about this film. So now I'm going in and I might enjoy it more because I have already received a message from Anna where she's like, "Oh my gosh, have you seen it yet? I loved this.
Hmm.
This was weird. I don't know what this was." So then I might go and watch and be like, "Oh, that weird thing. I think that that was this." And then we get to have this conversation. And maybe I still don't like it as much as she did, or vice versa. We both now have this different appreciation
Hmm.
because we can see the movie through our lens and somebody we care about's lens too.
Definitely. I agree. Oh my goodness. Well, we have a ton of other movies, both fresh off the film roll and some oldies but goodies that we're going to be talking about in the coming weeks. We definitely hope that you will continue to join us. And before we hop in our coffins and close the lids, don't forget,
Like, subscribe, and follow. And
until
comment. What, like Anna says, what movies do you want us to talk about? What
Mhm.
themes are you interested in? Coming up, we are going to have some theme related
Yeah.
episodes. So if there's a theme like you really want us to explore, let us know so that we can talk about it.
Yes, yes, please. And until next time, keep howling at the moon, and we'll see ya.
Bye.